Hey there, it's Trisha, and I'm going to share with you the 4 trades that I took yesterday, November 18th, using my 2 simple setups, trading the S&P E-mini. And these are the only 2 setups that I use. One is off of a longer tick chart, and the other is off of a smaller tick chart for scalps. And I do use 3 charts to trade: a longer tick chart, a smaller minute chart with specific indicators, and the smaller tick chart. And I do have to have confirmation on all 3 charts for me to enter any trade, whether it's to be in for a little bit longer or just a scalp setup. You can get these setups with the plan and the rules, the indicators, the indicator inputs, and the checklist at www.easyemintrade.com. Not for hundreds and not for thousands of dollars. You can get it for $49.97. I am sharing this information for a really reasonable price just because I want people to be aware that they don't need to spend hundreds or thousands on a system or program in order to be successful, contrary to popular belief. So, with that said, this is a longer tick chart, and I'm showing you this because there was a setup occurring on a longer tick chart um, where the red arrow is, but I did not take it. And the reason I didn't take it is because this red horizontal line is the close from the day before, and the yellow line is the low from the day before. And typically, when you have price action very close to those 2 areas, or even if it was, or the high of the day before, you're going to get a stall, and usually it's going to bounce in the opposite direction. So I passed on the trade. However, you'll see here on the smaller tick chart that if you chose to take the entry off the smaller tick chart, because you did have confirmation and you certainly could have done it, you would have had a small gain. So it still would have worked out, but I choose not to take those trades because they aren't high odds trade. But it still would have been successful, and you still had confirmation, and again, my choice. This is a setup that is occurring on a longer tick chart. So I've got my setup occurring, and then what I do is I drill down to my small minute time chart, and I look for my specific indicators, and they have to have a specific reading in order for me to take a long, and they have to have a specific reading in order for me to take a short. If I have those readings that I require, I then move on to my smaller tick chart, which this is what you're looking at here. So I did have confirmation for my setup. So I entered at 858.25, and I was out at 862.50 for a gain of 425. Now, typically I use my pivot highs and lows to trail my stops, but I did not do that in this case because when I saw that the price was breaking hard below the moving average, then I just exited. And you can see that all my indicators were turning against me, so I thought it smarter just to go ahead and exit. That was my choice. Obviously, I still would have had a profit if I did trail stop, but I could see that it was going to be turning against me, so I exited. This is a scalp setup that occurred, and again, I had confirmation on my longer tick chart and my time frame chart with all my indicators. And of course, on this small tick chart, it was setting up, and so I entered at 864, excuse me, 861, and I was out at 864.50. Again, I did not use my trail stop method for exits on this particular trade because it was breaking hard below the moving average, so I just exited. And again, the indicators were turning against me, so I preserved a little bit of my profit by doing that, and so I still had a profit of 3.5. This is another scalp setup that occurred, and I have my confirmation on my longer tick chart and my smaller minute time chart. So I entered short at 839.50, and this one I did trail stop, and I actually had a gain of 1.25. You can see here was my pivot high, and I usually, when I use the pivot method, I will put my stop one tick above that pivot, and so obviously you can see where I was stopped out, where the circle is over there. This is another scalp setup that I took that obviously I had confirmation on my longer tick chart, my smaller minute chart, and I've got my setup here on my smaller tick chart as well. So I got in at 836, and I did use my trail stop method, and I exited at 832.50 for a gain of 3.5 on this one. You can see where the circle is. That's where I was stopped out, just above that pivot high. And like I said, I use one tick above the pivot high. This is another scalp setup that I did not take because usually I do not trade this time of the day. A lot of people will trade for the first 2 hours in the morning and then the last 2 hours in the afternoon. I usually will stop usually around 2 o'clock. I usually don't trade through lunch, but usually about 1 o'clock or thereabouts, or 1:30, I'll start looking for setups, and I'm usually done by 3 o'clock at the latest. Just for me, my odds don't work very well for me in the afternoon. Some people trade better in the afternoon. My success rate is not very good, so I just don't do it. This was a setup that you could have taken off the scalp chart, the small tick chart, and you would have had confirmation on the other two charts as well, and you would have had a gain of 575 if you used the trail stop method. So it definitely could have worked. It's just not something that I do. On a very rare occasion, I'll trade in the afternoon, and even if I do, I never trade after 3:30. Those are just my rules. My rules are I don't trade before 9:40 and I don't trade after 3:30. And typically I won't trade during lunch, but if something sets up and I happen to be at the computer, then I will take it. Um, and that's just my preference. That's what I like to do. Um, Usually what I do is I know there's a lot of news going on out there, and I just don't even listen to it. And I know that a lot of people might think that that's crazy, but I'm trading strictly a setup. So I don't care about the news. I don't want to hear what anybody has to say. I don't listen to CNBC. I don't listen to what anybody has to say. What I do is when I first am setting up my charts first thing in the morning, I will get on the economic calendar and I will check to see if there are any major announcements that day. And usually what I will do is I will just hold off. I will just hold off trading around those particular times. I don't um, stop trading, but usually I just won't trade around. Like if there's an announcement at 10 o'clock, then I just won't trade until after the announcement. Usually, if there's an FOMC announcement going on, I usually will definitely only trade up until 11:30, 12 o'clock, and then I will wait until after the FOMC announcement and wait till things quiet down. So that's just how I do it. And again, I'm a very cautious trader. So today I took 4 trades and I had a total gain of 12 and a half. And obviously, if you would have took that fifth trade that I pointed out, you would have had an additional gain of 5 3/4. So anyway, go to www.easyminitrade.com and you can get these setups. And I appreciate all the great comments that I'm getting from everybody. You're very kind. And I will get today's trades done hopefully today or first thing in the morning. Have a great night.